Crombie, and we're going to be talking on the Brian Crombie Show. We're going to be talking about politics, arts, business, and social issues on the Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. Good evening and welcome to the Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. So COVID-19 has impacted all of us in a whole bunch of different and interesting and challenging ways, and we're making our way through it. But one of the most challenging, I think, is parents particularly dealing with their kids if they're going through separation or divorce. And so I thought it would be interesting to chat with Michelle Walton, who is a family mediator and arbitrator. Her company is called Phoenix Dispute Resolution Services, which is a company that specializes in mediation and arbitration. And so we're going to talk a little bit about COVID-19 and how it impacts families that are going through separations and divorce. So Michelle, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm great. Thank you.
Good. So tell me, to start with, what does a family mediator and arbitrator do?
So mediation is one process. Arbitration is another process that includes mediation. So mediation is a voluntary process in which two parents that are separating choose to come and see someone like myself, who is a family law mediator, to work through their issues through conversation with kind of a common goal, maintaining the relationship, as in maintaining the co-parenting relationship. And they're able to, even though, you know, there's kind of a lot of water under the bridge, so to speak, they're able to have conversations and come up to an agreement that they can both live with.
Right.
And it's a voluntary process. Mediation arbitration is very much the same thing, but at the outset you sign a contract that says, in the event that neither you nor your partner can agree in mediation, that you will move to an arbitration process, which is probably the best way you can describe it is a private judicial process, in which if the two of you can't come up with a decision, the arbitrator is going to make a decision based on the evidence that's presented to them.
Is the arbitrator the same person as was the mediator?
Same person that is mediating, and that is provided for in the contract that is signed. And then that arbitration award is legally binding, the same as an award that would come down from a judge, a decision that would come from a judge.
And people would choose this, number one, because of cost reasons, I presume?
Cost, so it's certainly more cost effective than going to court. It's certainly quicker than going to court, and more recently, because of COVID-19, it's very difficult to get before a judge given the challenges that COVID-19 has presented us with. And although the courts are doing a really great job at kind of going with the flow and kind of managing what's happening with COVID and the outside world, it's still really difficult to get a court hearing. And there's still that process once you get to court. So it's not like we see on TV where, you know, everything's solved in an hour. There's many, many steps before you get to the end result of a decision. And so mediation,
but I presume mediation arbitration also is not solved in an hour.
So it's not solved in an hour, you're right, but it's certainly solved more quickly than going to court. And so and it's a private process. So in the family court system, everything is public knowledge. And in mediation arbitration, it's not public knowledge. So I would have it on file, and I keep it on file for as long as I'm supposed to keep it on file, and then the files are destroyed. But in the family court system, your children are actually able to go and look up your family court file and see what you have said about their mom or their dad, which can present some problems later on.
Right. So how does one become a mediator or arbitrator? Do you have to go to law school or a mediation school or arbitration school, or what?
So people come to this process in many different ways. I went to school for psychology and then showed up in the mediation and arbitration field. I did my mediation training down in Toronto, and then I also did arbitration training, and then did a ton of hands-on work in the family law courts down in Toronto at 393 and 47 Shepherds, 393 University.
So, but you're not a lawyer?
No,
So why were you
doing
work in the courts?
Because I was doing family mediation in the courts. So one of the programs that the province of Ontario offers is free mediation for anyone that's going through the court system. And so if
as a first step before they go to the courts.
So on your at any moment when you're in court, there should be on-site mediators in each one of the courtrooms, in the courthouses and all across Ontario, that are able to provide you with mediation services that day.
Oh, really?
And if not that day, you can book, and it's actually free if you're in court that day through the Government of Ontario, and it's geared to income if you are not in court that day and still want to go through court-appointed mediation. So, and you still get the same benefits, so it's still a mediator like myself that you, or somebody else that you would pay, hundreds of dollars an hour to,
right.
But it's geared to your income. And so it's a great program actually that's offered through the Government of
And
Ontario.
you're not just doing custody issues, I presume you're doing financial issues and other issues associated with a divorce or separation?
That's right. So I myself don't do complicated financial issues. I'll deal with child support issues. Those are pretty basic. But separation of assets and pensions and all of the financial things, that would be something a family law lawyer would deal with because of the intricacies of dealing with the finances.
Okay.
So mostly I focus on custody and access and parenting issues.
Okay, COVID-19. What's happened with custody issues in COVID-19?
So COVID-19 has been challenging for parents in an intact family for many, many reasons, but certainly for parents that are in two-home families, it's really just created another arena for them to kind of argue and dispute in, which is most unfortunate for the children. And it has been, I was speaking to someone about this today, it's also been one of the greatest arguments because you can really, for our high conflict parents that we deal with, you can really get on your high horse about this one and kind of ride it into the sunset about, you should be isolating and this person shouldn't be seeing this person. And parents are using it as a way to thwart access to other parents. So we saw...
Okay, but thwart access, what if you're justifiably concerned that the other person's not, living in a bubble and socially distancing in the appropriate manner? Don't I have the right to not have the kid go to that contaminated household?
So no, you don't. And the court has been very clear that no, you don't.
Wait.
And it's a parenting decision. Just the same as it's a decision on whether or not you're going to go to a restaurant or a patio and have a beer, or you're going to stay home and not see anyone for the last 8 months.
No,
since March.
I can decide whether I want to go to a patio or a bar for a beer versus stay home. But what you're saying is I can't decide whether my kid I can't stop my kid from going to the mother's house and the mother taking them to a patio.
That's right, because as a parent, you get to decide what to do with your child on your time.
Even if you think that the spouse, your former spouse, is being inappropriate in their handling of COVID-19.
So in some ways, it's no different than if, for sake of argument's sake, we have a child together, we split up, you want to feed the child McDonald's 7 days a week. I think that's completely inappropriate and they should be eating Brussels sprouts and carrots. And that's my decision in my home. But in your home, you choose to do McDonald's.
Seriously, so if I think the kid should only be vegetarian, if I'm vegetarian and I think the kid should only be vegetarian, I've got no right to impose that upon you?
No, that's your personal choice.
Really?
Yeah, that's your personal. I mean, you could fight about it, and people have spent thousands and thousands of dollars fighting. Going to court, going to arbitrators, spending time in mediators' offices. People fight about the most ridiculous things, and you can. That's also your choice. But there's very little a court can do. So play that out in your head. Play that out for a second. So a court awards, let's say a judge says, you cannot feed that child McDonald's. What ability does the court have to enforce such a ridiculous order?
Right.
It has very little ability.
But to say, you're right to, you can keep your children because the risk of sending it to the father's house is too big because the father, has different people coming through it all the time and isn't social distancing, it doesn't create a bubble and blah, blah, blah. you know, if someone was reckless and exposing them to drugs or alcohol, wouldn't you be able to stop that?
But you're not comparing apples to apples. So it's very different, and there's a lot of context. And I think that one of the most important things we've learned throughout COVID is that each family dynamic comes with its own set of information and its own set of details that we need to use to determine the outcome of that file. We can't just, there isn't just one blanket statement that can be used across all the files, because, you know, in one home there may be elderly grandparents or elderly great-grandparents, and there's 4 families in that one home, and so their bubble is really large. And in another home, it's just mom at that home.
So bottom line, you cannot use COVID-19 as a way of circumventing custody agreements.
That's right. And the courts came out really early on in the very beginning and said under no circumstance would this be an acceptable behavior from either parent to use COVID-19 as a way to gain a leg up in the custody dispute or to use it to circumvent access to the other parent.
We're chatting tonight with Michelle Walton, who is a mediator arbitrator, a family mediator arbitrator with Phoenix Dispute Resolution Services, about family law, mediation, arbitration during COVID-19. I'm going to come back and ask her a little bit about schools, going back to school, and some other issues. Stay with us.
कोविड-19 का हल सिर्फ आपके पास है। घर पर रहें और अगर आपको बुखार या दूसरी अलामत है तो दूसरों से दूर रहें। बाहर के अफराद से 2 मीटर का फासला रखें, चाहे वो खानदान के हों या करीबी दोस्त। ऑफिस और पब्लिक प्लेसेस पर मास्क पहने, वक्फे से हाथ धोएं, ऑनलाइन सेल्फ असेसमेंट करें और जरूरत पड़ने पर टेस्ट करवाएं। फैलाव की रोकथाम के लिए हमारा फर्ज अभी मुकम्मल नहीं हुआ। हम एक दूसरे के ताउन से सबकी हिफाजत यकीनी बना सकते हैं। मजीद जानने के लिए ontario.ca/coronavirus पर विजिट कीजिए।
Here's to the people, pioneers searching for better, ambitious fortune seekers in strange new places. They're the inspiration behind Zoom, the fast and secure money transfer app from PayPal.
Are you looking for a different type of realtor? Meet Sohail Khan, broker owner of Century 21 Innovative Realty Inc. You don't need to know a lot about real estate, but you do need to know Sohail Khan, who knows a whole lot about real estate. He knows contracts, negotiations, research, he knows the market, and he really knows the area. When it comes to real estate buying or selling, Sohail Khan is a know-it-all. Get to know Sohail Khan, 416-822-0305 or at sohailkhan.ca. Experience excellence.
टीम फरहान मॉर्गेज सॉल्यूशंस आपकी खिदमत में पेश 15 साल तजर्बे के हामिल, आपकी जरूरियात और मर्जी के एन मुताबिक कारोबारी, रिहायशी, तामीराती और ज़रूरी मॉर्गेज सर्विसेज। हमारा कम तरीन मॉर्गेज रेट। टीम फरहान
को एक दफा खिदमत का जरूर मौका दीजिएगा। And this is my personal promise to you, you will not be disappointed. At Team Farhan, we have a mortgage solution designed for you.
मजीद मालूमात के लिए 416-569-9294 या फिर विजिट कीजिए हमारी वेबसाइट www.teamfarhan.com.
Welcome to Soho's Fashion Studio, a wonderland of designer and bridal couture, where our in-house designers will design your dream dress and our fashion houses in Pakistan will create it. Find casual to luxury fabrics under one roof. Quality is our #1 priority. We are open Tuesday to Sunday, 12:30 to 7:30. Shipping internationally and within Canada is also available. Visit us at 2275 Britannia Road, West Mississauga, Unit 15. Or call us at 647-967-0351.
एयर विंग्स ट्रेवल एंड टूर्स नॉर्थ अमेरिका की सबसे बाएतमाद और फास्टेस्ट एयर ट्रेवल सर्विसेज। 25 साल का तजर्बा लिए लातादाद अफोर्डेबल ट्रेवल डील्स के साथ एक्सीलेंस इन कस्टमर सर्विसेज ऑन जस्ट 1 फोन कॉल। ये है एयर विंग्स ट्रेवल एंड टूर्स। फॉर बुकिंग कॉल नाउ 1855-247-9464 और 905-272-2300. Air Wings Travel and Tours.
Consumer Choice Award recipients and GTA's top-ranked service provider, Dixie Electronics, authorized dealer of all major companies. Shop with a peace of mind, and low prices are always guaranteed.
I promise best customer service and lowest prices in GTA because we beat prices from all major stores and small stores. At Dixie Electronics, our motto is we sell quality and deliver confidence.
Dixie Electronics and Appliances, 5120 Dixie Road, Unit 11, Mississauga. Phone number 905-625-5900.
Life is precious, and health is the greatest gift. The best investment you can ever make is in your own health and life. Take steps now for your health and life concerns, which includes drug and dental insurance, travel insurance, critical illness, disability income insurance, and super visa insurance. We also provide life insurance, RESP, RRSP, and segregated funds.
To make the informed decision, contact Babar Chughtai, your health benefit advisor at 416-816-9210. It's 416-816-9210.
Was your family or business prepared for this financial crisis? Want to learn how I prepare my clients with the essential financial planning pyramid for any financial crisis come their way? Hello, this is Zahid Sayed from Arooj Financial. For your complimentary Zoom or Skype meeting, call my office at 905-624-0008 or visit aroojfinancial.com.
Buying or selling a residential or commercial property is one of the biggest financial decisions most people will make in their life. The real estate lawyers at Alam Law Chambers will guide you through the complete real estate laws to ensure your transaction completes on time and your dreams come true. Reliable and affordable. Alam Law.
If you are looking for a reliable, professional, and affordable travel agency in your town, then your search is over. Global Travel and Tours is your personal travel partner. Our dedicated staff at Mississauga, Jeddah, and Islamabad is always ready to make your trip hassle-free, memorable, and cost-effective. We will assist you with hotel reservations, the transportation, visa assistance, and travel insurance. We are the #1 pilgrimage specialist for Hajj, Umrah, as well as ziyarat to Iran and Iraq. Global Travel and Tours is a one-stop solution for your travel, immigration, and Forex needs. We are IATA approved agents and an authorized Umrah agent. To book your holiday or Umrah package, please give us a call right now at 1-877-275-3555. We look forward to hearing from you.
Hi, I'm Brian Crombie, and we're going to be talking on the Brian Crombie Show. We're going to be talking about politics, arts, business, and social issues on the Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. Good evening, welcome back to the Brian Crombie Hour on Canada One TV. We're chatting tonight with Michelle Walton, who is a family mediator and arbitrator,
That's right.
with Phoenix Dispute Resolution Services, a company that is her own company that works for families to mediate their disputes in regards to custody issues and other issues going through separation and divorce. And we've been talking a little bit about what to do with custody. And I heard, you probably dealt with a bunch of families that were going through this problem back in the spring, where custody was an issue and people were using it, COVID-19 as either a justifiable or just for an excuse for an issue about custody, and whether people should go on their regular visits to mom or dad. However, and what you've said is that no, you can't circumvent the rules. However, going back to school has also been an issue, and a lot of families have made different decisions, and it's interesting. I just this week interviewed a bunch of teachers, and they were telling me that there's a bunch of school classrooms that are half empty because so many people have chosen to keep their kids home and learn online. So what happens if one parent says, I want my kid in school because being in school is so critically important and social interaction and blah, 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 and the other parent says, no, I don't want to risk you getting COVID-19, whether it's because I've got, concerns myself or because the grandparents live in the house or whatnot. If one parent thinks distance learning is okay and the other person thinks no, in-class learning is critical, how do you deal with that?
So that was super challenging. And I have an 11-year-old. And so it was interesting that I found myself in this position of what people were coming to me, clients were coming to me to make decisions in the arbitration arena as to, does our child go back to school or not? And then here I was with my 11-year-old trying to figure out, do I send my 11-year-old back to school?
What'd you do?
Essentially, I sent him back to school, and it's an interesting story. It's an interesting story because on day 3 of me sending him back to school, I got an email from his school saying, hey, just so you know, someone at the school has been in contact with COVID. And
you're going, oh no!
Right. In the thought process, you think, well, it's never going to happen. It's not going to happen at my school. It's going to be fine. And you think it's going to be okay. And then you get that email at 11:14 on a Wednesday morning. And all of a sudden you panic. Is your child at risk? What do you do? Do you go and pick him up? Do you freak him out? Like what? So
what'd you do? Did you freak him out?
I did freak him out. Actually, I did. I waited an hour or so, but I totally freaked him out, and I went and picked him up. And then I had to apologize to him for freaking him out and being like, Mommy's really scared, and we're just trying to figure out what's going on and where the information's coming from. And once Mommy knows more information, we'll talk about you going back to school. And he was really grown up about it. He said, Mama, he calls me Mama, Mama, I wear my mask all the time. I wash my hands. You've packed me with hand soap, sanitizer, extra masks. I never take it off. I can handle being back at school. You don't have to worry. And so the next day, he's great. So the next day he went back to school and I didn't have to worry. But not all parents have that luxury. And so the difficulty in making the decision it comes back to, it's all about context and it's all about the individual case. And there's not one thing or one rule we can use to kind of blanket all of these cases. And Justice Andrea Himmel from the Newmarket court system came out with a really incredible judgment in which she, one parent was saying, stay home, another parent was saying, go to school. This child was in a French immersion classroom. Neither parent spoke French immersion. Dad had all kinds of supports. Mom didn't have any supports. Ultimately, Justice Himmel said the child would go back to school, which is an incredibly difficult decision for someone who doesn't know the child, who doesn't know the family. It's an incredibly, incredibly difficult decision to make. But she made the decision, and it was a sound decision, and the child has gone back to school. But in a lot of ways, it's created just another arena. And who am I to tell you what's going to be best for your child? You know your child. I don't know your child.
But parents can disagree.
But parents disagree, and so when they do, they come to people like myself or to judges, and we're kind of not forced, we chose these jobs, but we're put in this position where we have to make difficult decisions about children going back to school. And I find myself constantly looking at any decision that I've had to make, looking at those schools and seeing is there any COVID cases, because you almost feel responsible for the children that you.
But shouldn't the principle be the same whether there's a COVID case in the school or not? The principle of whether school is better than school is better than online school. That the decision should be the same whether there's a COVID case in school or not, because there could be a COVID case tomorrow.
So I think that's probably a really simple way of looking at it. For instance, a junior kindergarten child. So that child's 3 years old. If the decision is, do we send our junior kindergarten child to school when both parents are working from home, and there's not a whole lot of education that happens in junior kindergarten. The expectation is that we're going to ask this 3-year-old to wear a mask for 6 hours out of the day, or at least 4 hours and 45 minutes out of the day. What are the chances that that's going to be realistic? And these 3-year-olds are going to be walking around playing COVID tag at recess. Like, we need to be realistic.
Is that happening, COVID tag?
I don't know if
Oh,
COVID tag
God.
is happening, but I feel like if I was a 4-year-old, that'd
That's what
be
you
something
do?
that would be fun, right?
But I've actually heard parents of their, kids in junior kindergarten, that are going to school every day and keeping their masks on all day long.
That are going to school. It has become their norm.
Yeah.
So for
And
kids who
are
have
pretty
never gone to
resilient.
school, that's their norm.
And I think kids need other kids. Kids want to see their friends. Kids want to play. Kids don't want to be stuck at home.
They do. So the fear comes, so kids do, Bennett is loving being back at school with his friends and being able to be social, because he was locked up basically since March until September. So yes, kids do need other kids, but if you have grandparents or immunocompromised people in your home, or people with comorbid issues, meaning they have more than one health issue in your home, that's a huge risk. And so does your child need the interaction of another child more than their grandparent needs to be alive? Because for some families, that's the issue, and that's a real life thing for them. And so it's about looking at every case on an individual basis and looking at all the details of that case, and not creating kind of this blanket statement as this is the rule we're going to use. So if it's JK, they're not going back to school. If it's grade 3, they're going back to school.
So
that's not
custody issues, going back to school issues. What are some of the other issues that you've had to deal with given COVID-19?
So parents who feel their child is their children or their child is exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19 take the child to an assessment center to be tested, and then of course have now been told by the assessment center, by law, they have to isolate for 14 days. Well, that means that the other parent is no longer going to receive access to their child for that 14 days. And so that's creating in the beginning certainly created a lot more problems than it is now. I feel like most parents, certainly on my caseload, most parents are kind of following suit and are understanding what's happening.
What about the reverse of that? If the parent gets exposed, not infected, hasn't tested positive, but is exposed, and so therefore has to isolate for 14 days, can they still demand that the kid come see them?
So same thing. So I have a client who works in the healthcare system, and so the client was exposed, and the client has children, and that actually wasn't an issue. I learned about that during the conversation of whether or not the kids go back to school. So the fact that one parent was exposed to COVID-19 in their work situation wasn't an issue for either parent. It was just whether or not we send the child back to school.
or not.
So it really depends on people's fear level and their comfort level with COVID-19 and their understanding of what COVID-19 is and how it's transmitted.
I think the bottom line of this conversation is, which is probably obvious, but it's worth saying, don't take COVID-19 to your advantage. Don't try to take it to your advantage. It's the regular rules, the regular laws, the regular reasonable access applies.
Yeah, and the courts were really, really clear at the very beginning of COVID-19 back in March. A justice from Hamilton came out and said, look, this is not okay, and the court orders need to be obeyed regardless of what's happening with COVID-19. And I think for a lot of parents, certainly my parents that I work with, it was an education piece. It was, look, everyone's scared, and I feel like it's so High School Musical to say we're all in this together, and I feel like breaking into song every time I hear that. But for our children, the only common denominator, the only steadfast thing that our kids had was both their mom and their dad, because they couldn't see their friends anymore, they couldn't go to school, they couldn't go to playgrounds. Every other aspect of their world was changing. And so it was really important for me to educate my parents and say, look, everything in your child's life has changed. The only thing that's remaining consistent and constant is the fact that they have a mom and a dad, or they have parent A and parent B, and they get to see both of those parents, and that's their only normal right now. And so what we need to do is maintain that normal, not rock that as well.
Maintain that normal. That's a good bottom line rule. From Michelle Walton, a family mediator and arbitrator. Phoenix Dispute Resolution Services is her company. You can find that on the web. And thank you for educating us on some of these issues of parental issues, custody issues, etc. during the time of COVID-19. And very importantly, for reminding us of that favorite song from the Grease musical about we're all in this together. So thank you very much for joining us on the Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. Join us every Thursday night with interesting guests. Good night.